$700 billion. That's what Putin promised to spend modernizing Russia's military by 2020. But when Russian tanks rolled into Ukraine in 2022, the world watched in shock as this supposed superpower fell apart on the battlefield. So what happened to all that money? In 2010, Vladimir Putin announced the most ambitious military modernization program in Russian history. 20 trillion rubles, roughly $700 billion at the time, designed to replace 70% of Soviet-era equipment by 2020. 50 new warships, hundreds of fighter jets, thousands of new vehicles. Russia was going to build a military that could rival the United States. Fast forward to February 2022. Russian forces invade Ukraine expecting a quick victory. Instead, they face catastrophic losses. Within the first year alone, Russia lost over 9,000 tanks, thousands of armored vehicles, and suffered over 100,000 casualties. Equipment that was supposed to be modernized was still using Soviet-era technology. Encrypted communications failed, forcing soldiers to use unencrypted radios that Ukrainian forces intercepted. Night vision goggles were practically non-existent. The so-called modernized military was exposed as what one Lithuanian intelligence chief called a Potemkin village. So where did $700 billion go? The answer is corruption on a scale that's hard to comprehend. Russian military prosecutors admitted that between 1/5 and 2/5 of the entire defense budget simply disappeared. That's potentially $280 billion stolen. Generals were arrested for embezzling hundreds of millions meant for equipment upgrades. One colonel stole 860 million rubles allocated for battery upgrades. A major generals pocketed 1.6 billion rubles from satellite equipment contracts. Even the flagship Moskva had 692 million rubles stolen from its missile upgrade program, just before Ukrainian missiles sank it. The corruption wasn't just at the top. Defense contractors submitted fake invoices. Companies that didn't even exist won billion-ruble contracts. One fictional company repaired nuclear submarine reactors for years without proper authorization. The entire system was designed to funnel money into private pockets while the military rotted from within. Compare this to American military spending. The United States spends roughly $700 billion annually on defense, but that money produces actual results. American equipment dominates on the battlefield. Ukraine, using only upgraded second-generation American technology, consistently defeats whatever Russia deploys. The war has become a devastating advertisement for Western military superiority. Every Russian tank destroyed by a Javelin missile, every aircraft shot down by a Stinger, proves that American defense spending translates into real capability. Russia's military modernization didn't just fail, it revealed a fundamental truth about authoritarian systems. When there's no accountability, no transparency, no independent oversight, corruption becomes inevitable. Putin's kleptocracy created a military that looked impressive on paper, but collapsed under the pressure of actual combat. The irony is brutal. Russia spent the equivalent of America's annual defense budget over a decade and ended up with a military that can't even defeat its smaller neighbor. Meanwhile, the United States spends just 5.6% of its defense budget supporting Ukraine and has helped destroy nearly half of Russia's conventional military capability. That's an incredible return on investment. Today, Russia is struggling to produce genuinely new military technology. They're relying on Soviet-era legacy systems, pulling tanks from storage that are decades old, and depending on Iranian drones because they've expended their own stockpiles. The modernization program that was supposed to create a 21st century military instead produced what experts call innovation stagnation. $700 billion in promises, hundreds of billions stolen, a military exposed as hollow. That's the real story of Russia's failed modernization, and it's a lesson in what happens when corruption meets ambition without accountability.